Yesterday, I was talking about making and creating that shallow V below the copper shield shape to be that shallow V by going back and forth and bringing in uh, and turning one warp in each time you turn. So there was step downs from one warp uh, in. So there were a series of steps you could see. So the reason why we have the braids that surround these objects is that it smooths those step joins or step actions. So we smooth it by 3-strand braids. So I have 6 braids that surround this shape: the blue, black, white, copper, white, black. So there's 6 shapes or 6 braids. So I'm going to take, we have 3 strands, one on each side of the shape. Um, so I'm finishing these braids by picking up one pair or one 3-strand area, and took I took that top one and it went to the left of its partner from middle, to the right of the lower, and then straight down, and then around that one edged warp, and then the same thing, straight down to the left of its partner there, and behind 2. So now we have 3 strands that are going to be weaving towards the center there. And so this action one is this back one. And it's going to go over the middle, under the front yarn, and behind one warp and back. So I've just turned a bit of a corner there. Now that's all I'm going to do on this side, because I need 2 warps in order to do my splicing. So I'm going to, and the last 3-strand, I spliced here on this side. So I don't want to splice on this side again, or else it'll create some bulk in the back. So I'm going to pick up these 3, and the top goes to the left and to the right and straight down, behind one warp and up. Now this is the top one. It'll go straight down and behind 2 and towards the center, behind 2 warps and up. So then I'm going to take the action one, which is this back one. I'm weaving in this direction, and that's why I call this one the back one. So it's going to go in front of the middle, in back of the front one, down where that front one comes up, and to the back, behind one warp and up. So this now is the back action one. It goes in front of the middle, in back of the front, down where that front one came up, and behind one warp and up. Now I have these 3 strands that come from this T design, this T shape. So they've just been dropped. So when I get to that warp, I'm just going to include those 3 strands that were from the T shape. And later I'll trim those, but right now I'm tucking them into the warp with the warp. So now I have two warps between these 3 strands. And now I'm going to do the splicing. So this is the back one. It goes over its partners and to the back and push behind. So again, now this is the action one. Goes over its partner, across 2 warps, and to the back. Now this one is left. It goes across 2 warps and to the back. And if you've done it correctly, then you'll be at the foot of these three from this side. So let me get that one back a little bit better. Okay, so now I'm putting these three up, and they're going to go, this action one is going to go under its partners, down where that front one came up, and behind, and away. Now this is the action one. It's going to go under its partners, across a partner, across two warps, and up. Now this last one is going to go across two warps and to the back. So then we've spliced those 3 strand blacks, and they've met here because the previous 3 strand had met over here. So that's how I prevent any too much bulk in the back. So I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to needle up these 3 strands. So in order to get rid of yarns that you have already used and no longer are going to use, there's 2 techniques in the nahin. You either drop them like we did with these 3 strands and weave them in for a certain amount of rows before you trim them, or else you're going to do what I'm going to do here with these 3 strand spliced pieces. I'm going to go to the back and I'm going to needle them up with a needle. And in the old days, this was more of the traditional way of handling yarns that you no longer used. You just dropped them and incorporated them into the rows. They wouldn't show up because this is what you'd call a weft facing technique, where you don't see any of the warp in the back of these weft faces. So this wouldn't show up. You would just, eventually they would be tucked in enough where you would trim them. But in the old days, that was the prevalent way of handling yarns that were no longer used in your design. Then the needle came along, and then so it was easier to do get them out of the way right away. And so you'd needle them up. You'd take them and you'd take the ends and you would needle them with your metal needles. And if you needed to needle something before the metal needles or the metal needles came, then you would use filed down bone needles that had filed holes in them and all. So anyway, this is how shapes in the nahin technique are handled. You always put braids around them. And that's one of the reasons why nahin is slower than raven's tail, because you really have to take the time to carry them across, down, shape them, and oftentimes 6 is like the average rows of braids that you use.